without no sense of like stress, shame, or oh, I'm in trouble.
Okay, good evening, everyone. For our virtual attendees, quick sound check. If somebody could confirm in chat. Okay, looks like we're in good shape. So thank you everyone for coming and joining us for our second monthly meeting of the second half of the program year. I'm Matt Lowy, your chapter president, and it's an honor to have you here. Okay, first we want to wish a happy new year to all our Jewish members and guests of our chapter. We realize that tomorrow's Rosh Hashanah, today is Rosh Hashanah Eve. We tried to work with the restaurant to move it, but it didn't work out date-wise, so we do apologize for that. But Lashana Tova to all our Jewish members who couldn't be here will watch this recording on our YouTube channel. Okay, our 20th anniversary member appreciation symposium is 4 days away once we wake up tomorrow morning. From a show of hands, who's registered for either next Monday or Tuesday? Okay. So for those who aren't, we, because of the pandemic and just the impact on professional associations, we haven't held our 2-day symposium since 2019, so it's great to be back. This isn't co-chaired with Montgomery County government offices like it has been years past, but we do have speakers from the Montgomery County government in our agenda. So 2 days, 14 PDUs. If you're a valid member, $0. So this is our gesture of appreciation for your membership. If you're not a member yet, and it's 20 a day, so I'm not great at math, but I think it's better if you just become a member than pay the $40 a day. But that is a $20 a day option if you have any guests or coworkers that you'd like to gift. We'll be starting both days at 8:30 in the morning. We'll be finalizing our agenda tomorrow, both in the newsletter for those who haven't registered, and then the first note before you go for those who have. We had a few shifts in speaker schedules, so we just want to make sure that's confirmed. Our featured day one keynote is Dr. Todd Kashdan, who wrote The Upside of Your Dark Side, and most recently, The Art of Insubordination. Our theme is AI and project management and advancing sustainable development. So being a disruptor, not accepting the status quo is really what AI and robotic process automation are about. And we'll hear that from Mr. Weiner, honored speaker this evening. So Dr. Kashdan's been generous enough to waive his speaking fee for us to have 200 copies of his book, which will be pre-signed after his presentation Monday afternoon. He'll be staying around for talks, for pictures, for personalizations of the books. Signed books make a lovely gift. And we look forward to seeing as many chapter members as we can Monday and Tuesday as we celebrate our 20th anniversary. And just so you don't think you're not going to get a free book, Dr. Kashdan put this on LinkedIn earlier. He got all these boxes on his doorstep to sign. So the books are here. He's signed them, and we're looking forward to a great event. Okay, and in the with free and complimentary in mind, the first Wednesday of November, November 6th, we'll be back in this room for a member appreciation dinner. This has been a time-honored tradition of our chapter for the November dinner to be free to our members. So there'll be a buffet line, 2 buffet lines outside, a carving table, and all free. We're happy to announce Leadership Techniques, Lisa Hammer and David Newman, who last year wrote the engagement matrix, will be our guest speakers presenting on servant leadership in the 21st century digital age. So this will be a great night. It says on the fire code capacity, we can fit 216 down here. So our goal is to fit 216, but a free dinner. Just like tonight, you met a few chapter members that you hadn't met before. So we hope to see you next month. In a few weeks, we have a virtual lunch and learn on Friday, October 18th. So this is an opportunity. We've heard you on surveys and feedback that we're not offering enough content during the week. A lot of our members aren't able to make it in the evening sometimes. So we're taking that feedback and trying to at least offer one virtual lunch and learn. The Air Force recently returned its warrant officer ranks as a way to retain more IT and program management talent that's leaving for the private sector. So the project manager for that is going to share some project benchmarking, and the way they used it was through strategic portfolio management practices, which is a module in ServiceNow for those familiar with ServiceNow. So it should be an interesting talk about a modern day project. If you're finding yourself AI curious, hopefully all of us are. We're all here for Mr. Weiner's presentation. PMI has really been out front with AI education. Like, what makes you an AI expert right now? AWS just came out with a AI practitioner certification last month, but there's not really that AI version of the PMP to say, okay, you know AI because you have these letters behind your name. We will have a presentation on how to learn AI at the symposium, and some free trainings and things of that nature. But one of these is the PMI data landscape of Gen AI for project managers, what Copilot, Bard, Chat GPT can do if you're asking the right questions in terms of identifying critical paths and things like that. Earned value management calculations is really impressive. So this course, you get 5 PDUs. It doesn't take 5 hours. I think for the majority of our members who have taken it, it's maybe 2 if you're reading through everything and clicking on everything. So if you're not aware, if you go to the Google PMI AI, it'll come up, but we'll continue to publicize in our newsletters. Does anybody need a job or have a job who wants to come up and either publicize their job or give a quick elevator speech for themselves? Okay. If you want to, so the virtuals can hear you, and then virtually, if you have anything, if you want to put in chat, I can moderate.
Good evening. I'm Michael Georgiou. I have about 20 years in data, business intelligence, analytics, and more recently, AI. So if any of you knows of a position where these skills can be used, I'd be very grateful. How do I share my coordinates?
I can get it from you and then publicize it.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, does anyone have a job or is a hiring manager have interviews coming up? Okay. And we will have a jobs table at the symposium. We may have one of the job placement temp companies there. We can't confirm that, but we at least have their job listings and a few others. So happy to be a resource. Okay, for those who need PDUs, if you sign up for a symposium, that's a quick way to get 14, but we understand duty calls and some won't be able to get off work. We will have as many of the recordings that come out clear posted to our YouTube channel. So stay tuned for that. And then since the pandemic started, we have all of our chapter meetings with the claim codes. So if you need some background noise, if you're teleworking at home, this is a great resource. Or you could actually pay attention to the content. Okay, we're one of the few chapters in worldwide that have a sister Toastmasters chapter. For those not familiar with Toastmasters, it's a professional organization association focused on public speaking. We can all be better public speakers. Even like the great thought leaders have holes in their game that they want to improve upon to be good public speakers. So on our website, there's links, and the next meeting is next Wednesday on Zoom. There's a few meetings virtually and then one during the week, but a great organization to be a part of. Okay, earlier this evening when you checked in, you got a raffle ticket. So if you want to pull those out, industry leader and our former Vice President of Finance, Miss Laura Bernard, who co-founded Project Management for Change. If you're familiar with the Project Management Day of Services in January, where project managers pair with nonprofits and small businesses for a day of mind melding on the house, that's her. She finished her first book, The Impact Engine, and we have 2 copies. We were hoping to have them signed. They're unsigned, but we're working to get Ms. Bernard on our 2025 calendar. So if you do want a book, we can hopefully get it signed for you next year. So first, number 6936912. Hey, come on up. We have a winner. There, sir. Sure.
Hey, my name is Shazada Saeed. I just tell my neighbor, if I win, it's yours. If you win, it's yours. So he said, oh, it's not gonna work this way. And the moment you just call my number. So he actually lost this.
Okay, and the next and final winner is 6936923. Hopefully it's not on the same table. Hey, I did shake them up, but thank you, sir. Yep. Okay, and one of the great things about living in the National Capital Region is like Politics and Prose on Connecticut Avenue has author events every night. So we try to get books or signed books to raffle off to continue all our chapter members being lifelong learners. So keep coming back and you have a chance to win a book. Our sister chapters have some exciting events coming up. PMI WDC has a winery social this Saturday from 11 to 2 at the winery at Bull Run. Small price. There's a project management program around what goes into winery operations and some of their events. And then they have their monthly meeting on agile teams and business agility at the Virginia Tech Business Center down in Arlington. PMI Baltimore, we have some PMI Baltimore representation in the house on Wednesday, October 23rd at the UMD Outpatient Conference Center in Baltimore. There's a Beyond the Task, How to Become an Emotionally Intelligent Project Manager. We can all improve our EQ. So that'll be a great program. And then in November on the 13th, also a Wednesday, the week after ours, there's a Project Management What's Next. And that's in Columbia, Maryland, 30 minutes away. And then PMI Silver Spring is partnering with the University of Maryland for their Maryland Project Symposium. A little bit of a high cost, but there's a lot of fringe benefits that come with that. So if you can't make it to our symposium, or if you're just trying to attend as many symposiums as you can this fall, this would be a great one to attend. For those whose companies or agencies have education allowances, our education partners are doing great things with 3 months left in the calendar year. If you have some training funds to spend, they have great virtual courses as well as in-person courses. Okay, our featured speaker for the night is Mr. Robert Weiner, who's a certified practitioner with AWS. He's currently serving as the Senior Solutions Architect with Serco. He's had various leadership roles in the private sector over his 40-year career, which is continuing every day. Last month, for those who were here, we had the founder and president of the Montgomery Blair High School Alumni Association. He's a proud member. So next month, they have nothing to do with Montgomery Blair High School. So. And he's a world-renowned drummer, but he's now retired, as you see, with the small cast on his hand. So, welcome to Mr. Weiner, and we're excited. Anything AI and robotic process automation is, we first think generative AI and chat GPT or bots, but the Affordable Care Act, in terms of what it's been able to provide to our nation, and we'll hear how AI and RPA has helped with that eligibility. So looking forward to it, and welcome, Mr. Weiner.
Thanks, everybody. It's nice to be here. I hope everybody enjoyed the debate last night. Everybody enjoyed the debate? Thought it was pretty good? Yeah? Okay, good. Did it change anybody's mind? Anybody change your mind? No. So anyway, I am with Serco, which is maybe some of you have heard of it or not, but it's a pretty large $4 billion a year business process outsourcing company with a parent in the UK and a North American division here. So I'm part of the North American division team, and one of the contracts that we work on is the Affordable Care Act. So some of you, I think, would probably know what that is. Maybe formerly, it was mentioned in the debate last night. I actually had to really chuckle at some of the attempts to talk about how the former administration propped up the act, but that wasn't necessarily true. But we're going to talk about how over the 10 years we've had this contract, how we've automated it, how we've built things, implemented software, embraced new technologies, and saved a lot of money for the federal government in doing so. So I have a little survey. How many of you have ever worked on a project where you had to implement process automation? Show of hands. Okay, mostly, a little bit. How many of you worked on projects where you applied only one single technology for automation? Show of hands. Okay. How many of you have actually managed a project that involved automation and actually showed a positive return on investment? Pretty good. Okay. All right. So we have some people who've done this, right? Maybe. So I think I'm supposed to just press. Okay. So one thing we're not going to debate tonight is whether you like the Affordable Care Act or not. Okay. It's here, it's in place, and maybe it'll change in the future, maybe it won't. But let's just talk a little bit about it. We have, and these are pretty up-to-date numbers, about 45 million people enrolled. And we have over 70 million people in our database, right? Now, why? Well, some people, people go, they come, they get off, they get on. They drop out, they pass away, unfortunately, all kinds of things. So we don't delete the data because we never know when somebody's going to come back, right? So we've dropped the insurance rate, which is great. A lot of people enrolled came over from Medicaid, so it offered some advantages to them. And we also had, high growth. With the new administration and some of the things they've done to prop up the program, it's become more available for people and more affordable. So that's all good, right? All good stuff. And you can see the numbers and the growth and all that kind of stuff. So if I'm a consumer, how do I get my insurance? Well, the easiest way is go to healthcare.gov, right? Everybody's heard of healthcare.gov. Well, that is called the federal marketplace for health insurance. And associated with the federal marketplace are various states who have adopted their own insurance marketplace under the program. And those are state run markets, and we work with them as well. So there's a lot of different variations to the ACA. I could come in and maybe I need financial assistance. Okay, I don't have enough money to cover it. Maybe I'm a U.S. citizen, but I'm living in Europe, but I'm still a U.S. citizen. Okay, maybe I'm a member of a tribal native tribe. They get special designation under the program. So the point that I'm making is that consumers can have eligibility problems, issues, okay? And somebody has to resolve those. And that's what we do. We resolve the eligibility issues. So we're going to talk a little bit about how that is done. And this application, when it started, we were totally paper driven. I mean, completely paper driven. We were heavy on the labor. I mean, we had, it's seasonal, right? Open enrollment is coming November. So what'll happen to us come January, we're going to get inundated with documents, okay, from millions of people who have eligibility issues or problems that need to be resolved. So that's a lot of paper. We scan, last year we scanned well over 2 million pages of documents. And we do that all year round, but it's really heavy from January to April, May. So we were spending a lot of money, right, with people. And Serco used to be a people company, right? Hey, Serco, we need 4,000 parking attendants to go, write tickets in our city. Okay, sure. We'll hire 4,000 and we'll train them and we'll run it. Well, now people don't want bodies anymore. They want automation. Now, and we're going to see that this program, it's not so simple. There is a lot of rules which translate into business rules. Okay, there's a lot of regulations. You can do this, but you can't do that, but you can do this, then you can't do that. And if you do this over here, you got to do that over there. Well, that's real hard to implement when you have thousands and thousands and thousands of business rules that have to be taken into account. And what you don't want to do, which is what we did in the beginning, because we didn't know any better and we didn't have the technology, which was we built all the business logic into the software. Oh, it worked great until the regulations changed. And then we had to go update all the software, right? Everybody know that issue, right? Everybody been through that? It's called technical debt, right? Technical debt. So we built up a fair amount of technical debt, which we wanted to get rid of. And we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So what happens is we get an electronic case from healthcare.gov. So you go to healthcare.gov and you say, I want insurance. And you do your thing, and healthcare.gov says, all right, well, give us your identification documents and this and that. Okay, but I need financial help. Well, or I haven't, I'm living all out of state or whatever, out of country. So that's the kind of case that comes to us. Okay, these cases can be very simple. You just need the guy's correct driver's license, and the verification is resolved. Others, it can be very, very complex. Okay, so we can't just kind of willy-nilly make decisions. These affect people's lives, right? If they're going to get insurance or not. So we're kind of dealing with something pretty serious here. Okay, so what happens is we get a case, and what happens, we immediately, because the government said you can only communicate with consumers through mail, believe it or not, snail mail, and telephone. No email, no SMS, text, none of that stuff. Okay, so we send a letter to the consumer. Hey, you've applied, and we need the following documents from you. They get the list, right? So they can go to healthcare.gov and they can submit their documents, like you upload to, whatever your various sites you deal with, or they can mail the documents in. So when I say we scanned 2 million, that was real paper. That's only part of it. We got millions of electronic documents that were submitted online, okay, that we still have to process. So we're going to talk about that whole thing and how we do that. Okay, so just to give you an idea, we support over 150 different types of documents, from 1099s to 1040s to driver's licenses, which are incredibly difficult to scan, to passports and just everything under the sun. And don't forget bank statements, all kinds of stuff. And don't forget they change every year, that they don't ever stay the same. And more and more programs come online in other agencies that produce other documents that we now have to account for. So this is real nice and it's great, but it just gives you an idea of the types of documents. So we have documents that are forms, right? Easily subjected to scanning, indexing, but we also get correspondence, okay, written correspondence. And that's where we're going to apply some AI, okay? And that's what we'll be talking also about tonight, right? Okay, so that's the documents. So we get a lot of documents come in. So I think I can use this as a pointer. Top button. Oh, there we go. Okay, so here is the consumer, right? They send their application and their supporting documents. We used to run 2 big mail facilities. One was in Kentucky, and that was like a big data center call center. We used to have not only the mailroom there and the scanners and stuff, but we had we used to hire in the beginning, I remember, every season, right? Remember I said it's seasonal. We used to hire like 3,000 workers, right? Every year for this January through May, time frame. So so in the mailroom, that is the first place that we started automating, right? So pick your spots is my point here. You cannot automate everything all at one time. You may think you can, you are doomed to fail. You have to pick your spots. And I always say, well, pick the one that either gives you the best process improvement or has a good return on that investment, right? So the mailroom, and we're going to talk about how we automate it there. So when we talk about automation, we're not just talking about AI. Okay, if you believe all the hype, AI is going to solve every problem we ever had and will have. How many people believe that? How many people believe AI is going to solve every problem we have? Okay, I don't see anybody. All right, so okay, so it's a business tool like any other tool, right? And as you've watched the computer industry, and we all look like we've been in the industry for a while, you've seen, new paradigm shifts come, right? This is one. AI/ML is a paradigm shift, okay? But it's really, 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 really early adopters, risk takers, or people like us who are going to put their foot in the water and see how it goes, right? That's kind of what we're doing. Now, we still automated many, 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 many other areas of our system without AI/ML. So we're going to talk about some of those tools tonight too. But anyway, just to make it real quick. So, we have databases and we have repositories and we had computers and we had a big data center and a lot of people to run that and do all that. Well, guess what? We got rid of that. And we went to the cloud. And that was automation because we got to take advantage of some of the features of the cloud. And we got rid of our entire infrastructure, and I could tell you right off the bat, we went from spending $17 million a year on infrastructure down to $4 million a year. Okay, big change. All right, so data comes in, we have people, and I say people, but it's no longer just people who do casework. That's the real complex cases of eligibility that have to be determined. Some people ask for exemptions. Hey, this doesn't apply to me for whatever reason. Those have to be processed. We handle, again, some of the applications for insurance, different types of coverages, Medicaid, all that kind of stuff. And we also used to get a lot of return mail. I mean, hundreds of thousands of pieces of return mail. And then we have these underneath, we have these supporting, some systems like income verification, annual income, all these other things. So that's just a quick picture of the system, kind of a logical point of view and our process, okay? But let's dive down and talk a little bit more about some of the components. So at the top, I don't know if am I allowed to move from the camera or no? Okay. At the top here, if I could press the right button. So we are a work from home company now. We used to be, like I said, we used to have hundreds of people, thousands of people in our data center in Kentucky. We had four of them all over the place, all these people processing all these verifications. I'll talk about how we reduced people from the automation, which I think is how everybody wants to hear. And people ask me, like, what do you do for a living? Well, if I said I'm a business process solutions architect, they would go, what? Huh? And if I say, well, I automate things, and they would go, oh, okay, what does that really mean? But when I say, I hate to say this, but I unfortunately put some people out of work, they understand because we do automate things, and the ROI usually is heavily driven by labor savings. I hate to say it, okay? All right, so at the top, when we went to the cloud, we use Amazon. We're an Amazon AWS customer, and we use a lot of their products for desktop, virtual desktops, and phone, Amazon Connect. And by the way, a lot of these products, guess what? AWS is a smart company. They built and put some of their AI capabilities in a lot of their other ancillary products. So take note of that. You don't necessarily have to go out and buy your big, expensive AI engine. You might just need a product that already has some AI built into it, right? Take advantage of it. We use Panviva for work instructions, automation of work instructions. So there's another area of automation. We used to have paper operating guidance. Then we went to a wiki system, when I remember that. And now we have a information management, pulls up the guidance for the people based on what they're doing and how they're doing it and all. Okay, so that's automation right there. Okay, so again, I'm going to keep saying automation is not just one thing. It's multiple things. Okay. So from the middle layer here, or this, sorry. Am I going the right way? Hold on, I guess this, how do I go back? Down arrow? No. I'm trying to go back. Where's Todd? I need your help here. I managed to, of course, screw it up. How do you go backwards, or can you not go backwards? That one. Oh, that one. Okay, sorry about that. All right, if you could tee me up again, I apologize. Sure, go ahead. Yeah, we have to because we're government contract and we couldn't use anything. It's got to be the minimum certification is FedRAMP 2, middle FedRAMP. So yeah. Okay, so if I want to go backwards, okay, there we go. I think we're good. All right. So we also implemented, now this is not really automation, but it kind of helps, is Zscaler for zero trust security. Okay. We have personally identifiable information, PII, PHI, right? Everybody knows those terms. If you don't, PHI is personally health information. So we have to be, I mean, like this system is as locked down as any system I've ever seen. So we use Zscaler. And then we run on Amazon. So we have our core system runs there. We also use other products, which we're going to talk about. Appian Workflow. Okay, workflow. Everybody familiar with that term? Knows what a workflow system is? Okay, so, and then database technology at the bottom. You know, we use containers for middleware and all kinds of stuff like that. And then, of course, we have interfaces to CMS and the marketplace systems, which is healthcare.gov. And okay, and that's the system, right? All right, so let's talk about automation, because that's what we came here to talk about, right? And I thought that was a pretty good picture, you know, with the robot pressing the screen. Pretty good. Not quite true yet, but okay. So let's start with our tools. Our tool set starts in the mailroom, and that is with Tungsten, formerly Kofax document management system. So that was a big area of automation because we used to have, I mean, this goes back with all these documents coming in and we would OCR them, right? And produce the metadata. Well, we used to have tons of people sitting there going, yeah, that's the right metadata. Okay, yeah, that's the right metadata. Or no, that's the wrong metadata. So big labor right there in the mailroom. Okay, so we use Kofax or Tungsten. It'll take me forever to get used to that. To automate the classification of documents. So everything is classified by doc type. Remember all those doc types I mentioned? So we recognize those using recognition technologies, and we generate off of knowing the doc type, we generate the metadata. Now, some of these documents don't necessarily have all the identifying information for the consumer. They might just have their name. Maybe they have a social security number on the document. Maybe they have an address. Who knows? They're all, I mean, bank statements are all kinds of different things. So we have to associate documents to the right consumer. Great. And we're going to talk about that process because that used to be incredibly labor intensive. I mean, incredibly labor intensive. So automation in the document area, classification, extraction of metadata. Now, how did we get rid of the hundreds of people we had reviewing metadata? Well, we finally took advantage of a capability built into this software, which is to give you a confidence level on its recognition of the metadata, right? So we convinced the management, like, well, if we started passing documents through, if they hit, 80% or above confidence level, we don't need anybody to look at them. So that's what we did. And that reduced the labor in the mailroom for just what we call document review or metadata review. So that was just taking advantage of the feature built into the product that we had. So again, areas of automation are many, and sometimes they look small, but they return big results. So that's the first place. Then Kofax came out with robotic process automation. We'll talk more about it, but we use robots for input now. All our data that comes in from healthcare.gov, from other sources around the government, are all handled by robots now. And I don't know how many count of robots, software robots. These are software robots, not physical robots that walk around, handle all the data. And they now do what we call task resolution, okay? So as I mentioned, we used to hire thousands of people to work on this stuff. Not last year, but about 4 years ago when we started with the RPA and all this other stuff, we were about 2,000, 2,200 for a season. This year, we're down to hiring 600. Huge labor savings, right? Through automation. Okay, so it's a case system, right? A case is an eligibility verification to us. We have 90 days to get this done. Okay, so we as a company have SLAs to meet, right? So we have timers and event things going off all over the place, right? To help speed work through the system. And for doing that, we use Appian's workflow system. And we use it in the cloud. We don't even run it ourselves. We just use it in the cloud, okay? And this is not gonna go dive deep into anything tonight. We're gonna be pretty high level. All right, so that's what we use for case management. That's how we route work around. Documents come in, we tie them to the consumer, we create a set of tasks in the system that have to be resolved to get the eligibility done, right? So that's what a task is. An eligibility verification can turn into multiple work tasks for multiple people or groups, and now for robots, right? Okay. Remember I mentioned thousands of business rules, thousands. I mean, if you read the Affordable Care Act and all its operating stuff, your head would spin, okay? So we couldn't and didn't, we had all this technical debt, right, by building all the business logic into the code, but we removed all that and we went to a product called Sapiens Decision, which is a decision manager, okay? So we put all our rules in a central place under a central manager, and we can have a very complex decision made in literally microseconds to seconds, depending on, okay? And use this such that the rules can change, as I said, every year. We get a new set of instructions, so we update Sapiens. So that's how we get the decision-making capability done without having to involve people, right? We use Sapiens. And now we're looking at, and I say looking, okay, we went through all our stuff, all our work, and we said, what are the 1 or 2 big hit applications we can apply AI to? And we're going to talk about those, okay? So I'm not going to, this is not a seminar on AI and how it works and all the math behind it and all the data analytics behind it and all the natural language processing behind it. Okay, go take a course. Everybody in this room should get some kind of a certification in AI, ML, because you're going to need it. I'll say it that way. Okay. And there's a lot of things I've already seen for program managers, project managers for AI, ML. There's courses popping up all over the place besides, you know, PMI is doing it too. So that's great. And then, so we're going to talk about how we're going to apply that. All right, so just let's look at the process here. So documents come in, we scan them or we get them electronically. So we scan, that's pretty simple, right? We run 2 big IBML scanners. We have people that run them. And we use Kofax or tungsten to classify them, OCR them. Now let's look at this part right here, association. As I mentioned, we get documents of all types, and if they have their name and their social security number, it's great. We can find them in our database, no problem. But what about when they don't? Or what about when Robert Weiner was spelled as Robbie Weiner or Rob Weiner or whatever? Okay, so there's all these problems come up with associations. So the first one that we felt, and we used to again have seasonal people looking at, they used to follow this complex set of rules, how to associate documents to the right consumer. It was ridiculous. So we've automated that now, and we have robots, software robots that search through, they use the metadata off of all the different documents that have been submitted by a consumer. And they use that information and the historical information. And we bought some software from Babel Street, another good vendor to know. And they do the name matching. They handle the problems of Robert versus Rob versus Bob versus Bobby, right? And they also return a confidence level. So you're going to find that a lot of things in this world of automation, nothing is exact, right? They can't come back and say it's 100% we got it right. But they can say with some degree of surety, well, we're 90% confident or 80% confident. Well, you can drive automation off that confidence level, right? If it's good enough, you pass it through, you continue to process it. If it's not, you send it where it needs to go to be resolved. So pack that away in your little box of tools, right? The software and all these AI tools, all these recognition tools, all work by predicting. They're deterministic, right? They go, I think this is what it is. I got a 90% confident or I got a 40% confident. So we also use that same Babel Street software because we get documents in foreign languages, right? So Babel Street works really nice with foreign language documents too, and with foreign names, which can kill you in a computer when you're trying to match against foreign names. So again, another tool for automation that we implemented for getting past this name problem. And a lot of people use it, like the customs people use it, right? Same kind of software. So this association process would take hours. Our queue was God knows how long. We could never get the queue down, no matter how many people we hired. So we implemented this robotic process based on RPA that goes through this complex logic, which is in Sapiens' decision. It's not in the robots. And this way we can deploy 2 robots or we can deploy 50 robots, depending on the volume, right? So now, as you know, we're kind of lower volume. We're heading into open enrollment. Pretty soon, we'll probably be running 50 to 60 robots for this person association process. Okay, so that's another area of automation. And then adjudication happens with, yeah, sorry. No, well, in some cases we have some attended bots, but I'd say probably 98% of our stuff runs unattended. Oh, yeah, okay. So unattended means it fires off when an event happens or data shows up or a timer kicks off and it does its thing. And nobody has to watch it, nobody has to check it, and it's just good. It's unattended. In some cases, we have the RPA doing some work, but then we have it attended in that we really do want a person to verify the work. Okay, we don't, because it's too complex. You can't get everything 100%, right? Okay, so that helped, yeah, attended and unattended. Okay, so that's the mailroom and person association process. So let's dive a little bit more into RPA. So what is it? Well, it's software. It's a software technology that automates repetitive tasks. Okay, that sounds good. Mimicking human actions. What does that mean? Mimicking human actions. Well, what it really means is if you have a job type role and this person is always kind of clicking and doing this and it's kind of predictable what they need to do their job, you can have RPA do that because RPA can make the mouse move. RPA can read data off the screen. RPA can go out to a database, pull data in if it needs it. It can push data out. So essentially, they took some technologies that have existed for a while, right? Being able to read data from a screen has been around forever. But now they put the logic behind it such that you can automate it. So what we did was in the mailroom and in some of the case management work, where we used to have people, we now have robots. Okay. And that has been a process to get there. That is not something where we kind of went, okay, everybody's gone and we now have robots everywhere. It didn't work that way. We had to find the parts of our application that were suitable for RPA because not everything is, okay. Two, we had to make sure that the data the RPA needed was available to the RPA, right? So that meant we had to do some data analysis and look and see what was the best place where we needed all this data was in the right format, da 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 da. Okay, and then we had to have a lot of input on how these things should work from that user point of view. So what did we do first? We did the easy stuff first. We did the stuff that were easy verifications. Like we have this situation that shows up where the consumer says, hey, they want insurance. We ask them for documents and they just go radio silent, as we call it. We never hear from them. Okay. So we put a timer on that. And now the RPA goes, these people haven't been heard of. So we close the case automatically and send them out a letter automatically. We used to have people used to go through all the data looking for the cases that were going to expire because of, okay. So what else has this done? Well, it's helped with our SLAs because we had an SLA that we had to close cases within a certain amount of time and we weren't necessarily meeting it, right? So through automation, we've done a great job now. Our SLA reports are pretty right on the money, okay? So RPA can do a lot of things. You can run it and integrate it with systems. You can generate reports. You can have it act like a person does. You can run it in batch in the background on tenant as so there's all these things to do. But again, pick your battles carefully and pick the ones that are doable. Okay. There are some jobs like when I showed you like the complex cases, we couldn't necessarily apply RPA to them, right? We may be able to apply AI to them in the future, but RPA, we couldn't. It was too complex. We couldn't code the rules, even in Sapiens. So pick your spots, find the ones that'll work easily, and go for it, right? And then see what you do. Assess the return on the investment, okay? And we got pounded when we didn't get there, but we're doing good now. So as I said, we dropped, 800 people, and I heard it was 600 people, so I'm not quite sure, but it's down a lot through RPA. Okay. All right. Now let's talk about workflow. Workflow has been around for a long time. I've been implementing workflow systems forever. And the technology now is kind of commodity. You know, it's expensive, but it used to be really expensive. So what is it? It's automation software that automates business processes. Okay, that's great, but you have to first understand your business process, right? If you don't understand the business process, you can't automate it. And when you're automating it, what you don't want to do is just automate the existing process, right? No, you want to re-engineer the process to take use of the technology and get your efficiencies and so forth. And a lot of people make that mistake. I've seen it 100 times. I can't tell you, oh no, here's our requirements. Well, all you did was ask us to automate the existing process. And then they wondered why they weren't happy with the results afterwards, right? Okay, so it's going to save time and money and reduce manual labor. All right, so you automate a workflow. Now, our workflow is pretty complex. It is not just one simple little workflow. It is hundreds of different workflows with all kinds of conditions and rules and this and that. And we drive the workflow with Sapiens decision. We don't use the workflow to have it manage the business rules. So I'm giving you a little hint. Don't use the workflow system if you have a lot of business rules. If you have a little bit, okay, fine. But if you have thousands of business rules, use a decision manager system, whether it be Sapiens or something else, to manage your business rules. So the workflow tasks are routed around electronically. Now, a queue is where work goes to. So our problem was there's different levels of cases requiring different skill sets that have to have certain training in order to be able to do that job. And there's hundreds of thousands of these cases. So how do you distribute the work to the right place? So we came up with this term as the right work at the right time to the right person. Well, now it's the right work at the right time to the right person or robot. Okay. So now we send work to robots. Okay. And that work can be done quietly by the robot and then passed on to a person, or it can do the whole job if it's programmed right to do it. So in some cases, we let the RPA run unattended, as we talked about. In some cases, we watch it, but we always monitor it, right? We're always checking it. And that's something you're going to have to do with all of this. Don't believe that you're always getting 100% or even close to it good results. Audit, 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 and then audit again, okay? Management, it's funny. Management looked at us and said, well, okay, you can go ahead and put all this automation in, but we want to check everything that the automation produces. Well, wait a minute. There's no return on investment there, right? But we had to get past that. Management didn't believe. And that you're going to find out with AI, man. I mean, management's looking at us like, AI? You mean I'm going to have something produce results and we're not even involved? Oh, we have to check that 100%. Well, yeah, in the beginning, but not 3 years after we're into it, because now we can trust the results. So when we went to confidence levels, which I talked about with OCR metadata, first thing they made us do was check everything. And then we got them down to, okay, you can let half of it go. Okay, well, now they let everything pass through because we proved that the results of the automation was working and it was producing valid results. And if you don't do that, you won't get management buy-in. They won't ever believe you, okay? And that in turn translates to how they want to actually reap the benefits of the return on investment, okay? All right, so we had to make sure that our SLAs are met. one of the things we also had to do, and Workflow will give you, is in this kind of application where we do have people doing work, we have to be able to evaluate those people. How much work do they turn out? What's the quality of the work? So we use the workflow system because it keeps track of all that stuff for us. We don't have to do that. So we can do evaluations like that. We can look at anybody's performance like that because we have a whole operations staff that is constantly tuning and looking at these various processing queues and deciding, well, we need to move 3 people who are trained in this type of verification over here. Or, okay, so this affected operations. This is not something, that just runs by itself. You kind of have to watch it and you have to manage it. Okay, so we do that. And again, I can't tell you how many labor hours we saved because of automation with workflow. All right, decision, we talked a little bit about. It's software, okay? It's end-to-end business logic software, basically. And what it'll really do, it's really good. If you've got your business rules built into code, right, which a lot of people have done, and you now want to move to something like this, they have software that'll run through your own code and extract the business rules logic and put it into Sapiens. Isn't that great? So that's what we did. That's how we moved our business rule logic that was embedded in all our softwares in the early days to the Sapiens system. So we use it as a service. It's in the cloud. It's their site, and we use their API. Okay, so you're going to find that a lot of these tools for automation have associated programming interfaces, right? And that's mostly how you're going to integrate them into your systems is through the APIs. Okay, so and this is a good example. So Sapiens, good product. I'm not necessarily saying it's the end to be all for decision managers. There's new ones coming out now with AI built in them. These guys are trying to figure out how to add AI. And therein lies a dilemma now for all us managers. And that is, well, this program, this product has AI built to it, and this product has AI built into it. And there's AWS's AI and there's IBM's AI. Well, which AI do we use? And is there standards? Well, they're coming, but not yet. Okay. So we're early. We're very, very, very early. All right. Any questions up so far? No? Either I'm doing a really good job or I'm doing a really bad job. All right. So now we get to the heart of the matter that people want to hear about. And that's AI. So let's kind of get some definitions. AI and machine learning are related. They're not the same. People seem to be using the terms interchangeably. Okay, AI is intelligence, ML is machine learning. They work together, but they're not the same. It can mimic human intelligence. Now, there's a whole body of science behind this that you can go learn about, and it's complex. This is big math and big data and large language learning models, large language models, and all kinds of stuff. And if you want to go do that, that's great. As program managers, I don't really think you need to get into that deep, but you need to understand at least basically how it works, okay? So AI mimics the intelligence, math and logic, and ML can learn, right? It learns from the data that it sees. Well, this is not a new concept. Kofax, Tungsten, has been doing this for years with documents, right? We can train Tungsten to recognize documents, the same kind of technology. They've taken it a step further now and say, well, we can learn, and if now we have these large language models. Well, a large language model has trillions of associations between words and phrases and concepts, and it's based on all the data that's out on the internet. It's great, okay? That's not necessarily your data. That's not necessarily the data you are going to have to implement, okay? So we're going to talk about that problem because AI, while it's great, you have to train it, right? And what do you need to train it? Well, you need to understand what it should look for, so the rules. And two, you better have the data to train it, okay? So we're starting to see a lot of companies who have these great ideas about AI and they want to apply it, but guess what? Because of storage costs, retention policies, legal problem, whatever, they got rid of their data. They don't have it. So now what do you do? Okay. That's a real problem for organizations. And you're going to face that as managers because the developers are going to come, oh, yeah, we can do this. Okay. We just need 10 million pages of, this type of data. And you may not have it. You may not be able to get it, or it's going to cost you a fortune to bring it back from whatever archive storage you might have it in. Okay. So those are factors you have to be aware of. Okay. So while every machine learning is an AI solution, not all AI solutions need learning. Okay. You don't need to learn everything every time. Okay. And we'll talk about some uses today where you don't have to learn anything. So you need to understand both. They're applicable to both. And you're going to hear, I don't know if it's on the next slide. Let me make sure. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so generative AI. Everybody heard that term? Generative AI. So on every commercial for AI you'll ever see. And what does it do? Well, it generates content off your data and models that are available out in the world called large language models. And there's a list of them, and there's more. There's every day, right? So Google's got one, and everybody's heard of Chat GPT and all that. Okay, these are all different large language models that are emerging now, and which one you choose to use is going to have to be a decision based on one, your requirements. Two, guess what? These guys make money off these large language models, so there's costs, right? You have to factor in. And some of them are specific to industry, some of them are specific to application, and some of them are general, right? But in most cases, they're not going to address your business problem, right? And we're going to talk about that. So generative AI is the prime example, hey, give me your resume and I'll rewrite it for you. AI. Okay, everybody done that yet? Anybody? It's a real fun thing to do to see what it comes out with, right? And I've fed into it all kinds of stupid things just to see what it would do. And guess what? It's not infallible. You can screw it up. You can make it do things. Okay, so you have to train the model, train the model, train the model, train the model. And training is an ongoing, constant thing. It never stops. You produce data. If the AI says, hey, I think this is related to what we're doing, oh yeah, you got to put it back into the model. So you're constantly training your models. It never ends. We constantly train tungsten. We constantly are training, well, not training, but new rules to sapiens, right? So don't think that training is a one-shot event. It's not. And the problem with AI producing things, at least in the beginning, is you're not going to trust it. We don't trust it. We don't trust it yet. Okay. So that implies that you need a governance process to look at the produced output from generative AI, at least in the beginning, to make sure that the model's working right? And if it's not, you tune it, you adjust it. So we're going to talk about how we're going to use AI in our call center in just a little bit. And when I told those folks that they had to implement a new governance process, I thought they were going to kill me. Like, what? A new process? We have to look at all this data? I said, well, for a while. Once the confidence levels come up high, remember, confidence levels, once they come up high, maybe you only have to look at 10% of the stuff that comes out, right? But in the beginning, you got to be really diligent. Okay, so entity extraction. So that's generative AI. Any questions? That makes sense. It's pretty simple in concept. It's real difficult in how it's built and how it works. But okay, entity extraction. Entity is a fancy term for a word or a set of words or phrases or things like that. Okay. And why would I want to do that? Well, what AI has brought us is we've always been able to pick off characters out of a document and say, this is the word bank, truck, whatever. But we could never understand the context of how it was being used, the meaning of the word. And we all know words that can have different meanings depending on the tone in your voice, right? How you say it. The spelling could be a little different, but it has the same meaning, right? Synonyms. So natural language processing is the core technology behind this. So I'm going to show you an example of how we're going to use this. And a practical example where we're going to save a lot of money by doing this. We're going to look for words and phrases that have meaning to us, right? One of them is sentiment analysis. What does the consumer think of us? They like us? They don't like us, right? We got a lot of written correspondence. What do we do now? We have lots of people read every piece of correspondence, and they assign a sentiment score. That's a lot of people, again, labor. So this gets me to the notion of vocabularies. This is where your data comes into play. Because to make this work, yeah, you can have large language models and you can go buy this and buy that. But ultimately, to make things work for a specific set of applications, you're going to need a application or domain specific vocabulary of words and phrases that the AI will detect. And not only detect, but how are we doing on time, by the way? 5 minutes. Okay, I'm just about to wrap up. So that's entity extraction. So we want to, because we get written correspondence about income. Hey, I made $10,000 last year. What year are you talking about? And this year I'm going to make 9,000, and my wife's going to make 5,000, but it all doesn't come in the same year. Okay. Now we want to input their annual income as a number, right? Discrete number. This is what they made. Da da da. Well, how are you going to do that from written correspondence like that, right? So AI is going to help us there, entity, right? Because it's going to figure out that, wait a minute, this number is being mentioned as an income. That's the context behind it. Oh, I'll pick this off and make it a piece of metadata for you, annual income. Okay, so that's entity extraction. And we talked about large language models. Okay, so, all right, so there's the last couple slides. So what we're going to do is we have, in the course of doing eligibility, sometimes we have to make calls to consumers. We call them on the phone. Hey, we need your documents. Document you sent us is not right, blah, 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 blah. Sometimes they call us, not that frequently, but they do. So we have inbound and outbound calls. We record everything, right? So we have these transcripts of these calls, and we have to do quality assurance, right? Was the call conducted properly? Was it based on the type of verification, eligibility problem? Were all the right components of the call? What's the sentiment? From the transcript, customer like us, not like us, hate us, whatever. We want to be able to mark areas of the transcript using AI that are out of compliance with the guidelines for the calls. Okay. Today we have 75, almost 100 people who do this. And the system, I didn't build it, thank God, but they used audio. So they have to listen to the whole audio of the conversation to figure out what the sentiment was and was the call handled right. And they make these observations, right? Oh, this wasn't done right, or the worker didn't say the right words, or they didn't have the disclaimer in, and okay, great. So we're going to use generative AI and we're going to scan the transcripts. Okay. And and we're going to do this both in English. So we're going to produce an English language transcript and we're going to produce a foreign language transcript if the conversation was in a foreign language. And we're going to use AI to understand the content of the transcript versus the rules and the guidelines, and it will go through and mark the areas of the transcript that are out of compliance. So we just saved God knows how many labor hours of people listening to audio doing that. We're going to allow, we're going to find these, what we think are other keywords and phrases that have to do with the call or the sentiment or any things that are out of compliance. And guess what we're going to do? We're going to generate new terms. And what are we going to do with them? Train the model further, right? And there's that process of producing content, looking at it or at least verifying it, and then using it to train a model. But we're also going to use AI to calculate sentiment. Well, how can we do that? Well, if we build a vocabulary of words and phrases for the AI to look for that indicate positive sentiment or negative sentiment, okay, and train the AI to do that, we'll be able to get a much better idea of the sentiment. And once we are in that process, then our analytics people, our business people, they can now look at thousands and thousands of phone calls and run the same algorithms against all those calls and say, yeah, these customers like us or they don't. Okay. So this is a prime example of picking a good application that had real business value to a real problem that has a positive return on investment. Why? Because, you know, we don't go around talking about this, but they'll probably be able to go from 100 people down to 50, maybe down to 20 if we really get this thing right. Okay. So that's the first application for AI that we're choosing to do. Okay. So like I said, pick good applications. Now, since a lot of this is based on natural language, then guess what are good applications? Documents, right? Documents of any kind, transcripts, whatever. We see in the future being able to go through all the CMS or clients' policy documents and generate all our work guidelines automatically off using AI. Now, are we ready to do that tomorrow? No. Okay. Will we need, you know, lots of support? Will we have to have a good vocabulary for the AI to work off of? Yeah, that's not going to happen overnight. Okay. All right. Finally, then, last thing I want to talk about, and then I'll show you a real live example, is entity extraction. So where are we going to use that? Well, as I mentioned, we get these written explanations of income. That was a perfect application. Why? A lot of people need to read the correspondence and then sit there and type in all the data off of the correspondence and explain the income. And some of them can be very complex, right? So we're going to extract the words and the phrases that mean something to us and use that to generate metadata to eliminate data entry time. That's not such a fancy application, is it, for AI? But it's a real good one, right? So what does that mean? What does that really mean? Well, let's take a look at this real quick. Last year, I made $24,520, an additional $35,000, no dollar sign, from a part-time job. My wife only works half-time and makes $10,000 a year, also no dollar sign. This year, I expect to make $35,200, and my wife will make $92,000. Okay. Well, if I read that, I would say, okay, well, 24 to 520 and 35,000 last year, so that means 2023, right? So if we have AI, look what it's going to do. It's going to say, well, last year is a date, context, right? And I'm smart enough to know this is 2024, so last year means 2023, right? 24,250 is an income, that's a value, so we need that. We know it's income. And guess what? It's associated with last year's income, right? 35,000 is additional, and it's associated with this statement here last year. So guess what? If I add these two together, I'll get their annual income, won't I? Right? And this year's date we talked about, this is income. Well, this year, so that must mean 2024, right? I'll make 35.2, and my wife only make 9,002. So clearly that's 2024 income. So that's what entity extraction will do for us. And so this metadata then gets tagged for what it is, and we just avoided hours upon hours of people looking at these correspondence documents and trying to figure out what data needs to go into the income verification system. Okay. So a little bit about how we've done automation. Hopefully you found it useful. Probably some of this stuff you've heard before. But the AI stuff is new. We're getting our feet wet. A lot of companies are getting their feet wet. It's very early, but it's the right horse to ride, right, as project managers. And then I just want to finish up. Sorry, I did have one more slide. I figure since this is the PMI, I talk a little bit about how we manage this thing, right? Okay, so we have a PMO organization, with a VP director and a bunch of people. We're agile, safe, agile oriented. So we have product line managers responsible for all the functional areas. All the project managers are pool based, right? Analysts, lots of analysts running around everywhere for different reasons. The marketplace, as we call it, is our group that interacts with our client on policy, the program, the Congress, etc. So we have a group of people who do nothing but that. And then, as I mentioned, we moved last year from what I call hybrid agile to safe agile, and we've adopted that now across the company, and that's actually helped a lot. Then we have a separate IT organization, and that's where I live as a solutions architect. And we operations group, as I mentioned, operates the facilities and does the mail and does some of those things that we talked about. So I thought I'd just mention that so you had some idea. With that, I'll close and take any questions if you have any. Yeah.
So the longshoremen want to make sure that everything you just talked about is never implemented in their new contract.
Okay. Why is that?
I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you why, and this is just my opinion.
They could completely automate everything they're doing today and then run it in other ports, I think.
Look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that people are not going to lose their jobs over this technology. It's going to happen. So, but it's not unlike other technologies that have come through. People adapt, and this doesn't solve every problem. It solves problems that, at least right now, are easily solvable with the technology, but there's some really complex things that you can't solve yet. Maybe we can in 20 years, in which case maybe you and I are on a beach somewhere and we don't care about it anymore. But yeah, and what I say to people is, okay, if you have that kind of a job where you think you'll be automated out, retrain yourself somehow. It's not so easy. 2, try to figure out how you can ride the horse, right? I don't know what else to tell you, but you're right. There's a lot of people running scared. And our own operations people, when we presented this to them on the call transcript stuff, first thing they said was, we're going to be out of jobs. Well, not yet, no, but maybe eventually. So hopefully that helped. I don't know what else to tell you. It's a big issue. Yeah, it's true.
Contract.
Well, look at the strike for the television movie writers and artificial intelligence. Okay, and the artists are worried about their images showing up, facsim. Those are legitimate concerns. So there is a whole ethics, legal thing that's growing around us. What is the right thing to do? Should AI show bias? Can we make sure it doesn't show bias? Look, if we have AI say a consumer's not eligible for insurance, what if we're wrong? What if it's wrong and that person is denied insurance? It has real life impact, right? So that's something that nobody's really figured out yet. This is, like I said, in its infancy. So there'll be ethics standards, standards organizations are emerging, but it's not there yet. It's kind of like the Wild Wild West a little bit. Other questions? Sure.
And retraining. The theory is that if jobs are lost to automation, companies should provide training to help. That automation needs to be maintained. So that not the exact same number of people need to maintain the automation, but there is some of those long-term workforce that could be redirected to and trained, not everyone, but retrained to maintain that automation. It's like ATM.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Used to replace tellers, but the ATMs needed to be replaced. So now the ATMs are going away and the tellers are coming back. So there's.
Who knows? Yeah. Question.
Yeah, I just had a question. You talked about kind of your audit, like you incurred this audit expense, finance expense. Did that like temporarily swell your expenses through this process, and then you had to recoup it on the back end, or did you find that you were able to keep it fairly aggressive?
We knew we would have to do that with more people at the beginning, so we kind of built it into our ROI model that way, and we kind of showed as best as we could predict a drop in that compliance issue. It never goes away, right? But it can get kind of steady state, as you call it. But with this technology, it's going to take longer. It's more to train. It's more complex, and you really got to be careful the answers coming out in the beginning. So, yeah, but that's how we did it. We built it into the ROI model because otherwise, it was just another cost we would have had to recoup later on, and we'd rather build it into the model. That was just our way of doing it. Other questions? Sure.
I want to clarify something. Did you say that your AI application, your bot, is actually making a decision whether or not a applicant is eligible or not?
No. In the end, it is a human being who makes that final decision. Okay. However, the process of getting to that decision, we made infinitely faster, easier, with more automation, but we have yet to go to that. And I don't think we ever will. I'll be honest with you. It's too critical. Maybe 10 years from now, when I'm on a beach somewhere, not worrying about it, they will, but not now, not yet.
The question is because I work for CMS.
Ah, okay. Sure.
Replace the decision of a physician looking at a medical record. However, we can use AI.
Well, again, I look at AI as not the end all to be all. I look at it as a supporting technology that can help you make decisions faster, quicker, easier, maybe cheaper, hopefully. But in the end, depending on what your business is, right? Human beings can't be completely replaced. I'm sorry. At least not in my lifetime. I don't see it. Okay. But yeah, we don't. Critical decisions are really, when I talk about ethics or ethical decisions, that's one of them. Question? Other questions? We done? Okay. I hope. Oh, one more. Oh, one AI bot? Can't really do that, but I would say we've dropped from around, like I said, around 2,000 at our peak some number of years ago down to about, I don't know, like I said, I thought I heard 600 this year. So do the math, that's 1,400 people over about a 5-year period. Yeah, about 200 a year, I guess. Now, I can't tell you how many bots we have running. I mean, we could probably have hundreds of bots running because like that association application I talked about where we associate documents to people, that's a really complex algorithm. So it takes a lot of computing power and, you know, IO to run it. So you can't just run it on one computer with one bot, right? It has to be a lot of bots running across a whole, you know, cache of computers to get the performance we need to meet our SLA. That help? Okay, thank you, everybody. Hope you found it useful.
Okay, Mr. Weiner's been generous enough to let us share the slides, so we know there was some smaller fonts, so you can deep dive into those. We'll have those posted tomorrow. Another round of applause for Mr. Weiner. By a show of hands, who is this first dinner meeting tonight? Who joined us for the first time? Okay, welcome. So, yep, and an exciting week ahead with the symposium. So hopefully we'll see as many of you there as possible, and then back down here next month for the appreciation dinner.
My contact information, last slide. Go on.
Yep.
People, by the way, if you want to ask me a question, phone number, feel free.
Okay, Mr. Weiner will hang around a little bit if you have any remaining questions. Board members are around. Thank you for being members and safe travels. The Orioles lost today, so they're out of the playoffs as soon as they got here. So there's always next year. Have a good night.
They would have won.